From the heart of the 713, it's fun, it's engaging, and it's uniquely Houston. H-Town's hottest new show, Chattin' with Chelsea. Here's your host, Chelsea Edwards.
Hey, besties! Thank you for joining me for another Chattin' with Chelsea. Appreciate you popping in. I'm your host, Chelsea Edwards. It's one of my favorite days of the week, Relationship Wednesdays. We are keeping you all together. We got Dr. Viviana Coles here to tell us how we should communicate with our partners when we want to change our looks. Plus, you know, the lazy days of summer are well and gone. But we also want to make sure the lazy days of your relationship are gone. We've got Pastor Keon Henderson here to talk about his new book, Lazy Love. All right, so speaking of lazy, I will admit, when it comes to doing things around the house, I am very slow and lazy about it. Like the light bulbs in my bathroom, I have 4 of those decorative bulbs, and like 2 have been out for like months now. So I finally decided to go ahead and get some new bulbs and put those in, replace the old ones. And it's like I'm looking at a new person. I didn't even know how I looked this whole time until the other day when I finally switched those out. So if you're being lazy in other things, it's all right. I'm with you. But we do want to make sure your love life is together. So speaking of getting a new look, we got this video from Christy Sarah playing a prank on her husband with some new lips.
Hi babe, I'm just doing a makeup video. Trying out this lip plumper for my new lips. I want to make sure that I can still get that extra plump. With these new lips, I'm definitely feeling like more confident and like, I don't know, it just feels like the vibe. Christy, I told you I had a lip appointment. What?
Christy, them ain't lips.
The swelling, it's gonna go down. Like, it's just very swollen, but it's gonna go down.
You look like Oscar from Fishtail. Those are flotation devices.
I just have to get ice. Can you get me an ice pack? Like, be helpful.
Who you think you about to be in public with?
Give it 48 hours.
I mean, all your kids. You need to talk for real. You need to turn it off.
I at least finish my makeup tutorial.
Nobody want to see them lips.
He says, them ain't lips. Okay, we know this is a prank, but what do you do when you do want to change something about your appearance when it comes to letting your partner know? We got Dr. Viviana Coles here. Yeah, I know. You don't want to do that. Surprise, fish lips. Okay, so this is crazy.
This is wild.
Yeah, but it does bring up a good point. Like, you know, if you do want to do a little something, a little zhuzhing, how do you get your partner to be on board with you? Or is that a thing?
Okay, well, that was a lot.
Yeah.
I've been pranked.
You're traumatized.
I'm traumatized. Here's the thing. I think for so many couples, wanting to make improvements, that's all very subjective. Like, whether it's making permanent alterations to your body or even just changing the color of the lipstick you tend to wear, or how you do your nails, or how maybe you cut 4 inches off your hair and your partner's like, wow. And it does bring up some really big topics like power, control, who has a say over your body, what kind of autonomy do you want, and also just courtesy and being considerate of your partner's feelings and thoughts.
That is a good point, because I would think, you know, that is something you definitely want to run by them when it comes to something like injections and things like that. But you're saying even some of the smaller things.
Even some of the smaller things I've heard of in my office at Houston Relationship Therapy, people will come in and talk about, like, my partner got a tattoo with her girlfriends when she was on this, you know, mom's weekend.
Oh, wow.
And didn't talk about it with me. But if I had done that, she would have just flipped out. Or, you know, something like getting the eyelash extension things. I'm not really familiar, but those are the sorts of things that sometimes we think, well, this is just part of being a woman if you're into that sort of thing. And we just kind of say that's how it is. But again, I think it's important to remember that your partner is the one that needs to find you sexually and emotionally attractive. And so their opinion should matter at least a little bit.
Yeah, that could cause even more of a disconnect if you go and do something and you didn't even think to run it by them.
Well, or maybe you think, well, this is what I want to do. But again, especially if you're married to a man, the visual piece of all of this is something that I see a lot. Again, as a sex therapist, this is what we talk about all the time. And I think a lot of women don't realize that in doing something that is self-empowering, you might risk taking away some of that attraction from your relationship, which of course isn't ever good either. So it's a tough topic. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah. Okay, so in the meantime, just don't go popping in to the office and getting all things shot inside your face without talking to your partner.
Goodness. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's just certain things that I think, if it's for your health, it's probably an easier way to talk about it.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. We're going to talk about that some more right after this break. You guys got to keep it here. Don't put anything on your face in the meantime. This Relationship Wednesday, we are keeping our couples together, even if they want to get some procedures done to themselves. Dr. Viviana Coles is back. We just watched the video about, the wife playing a prank with the lips. Okay, so we know that's wild to do something crazy without telling your partner. But how would you communicate to your partner that you want to make some changes?
Well, here's the thing. I think for a lot of people who just watch that, they're like, that's wild. But for some partners, even doing something like taking 4 inches off of your hair can feel like a really big deal.
That's right.
Or getting eyelashes, I don't do it, so I don't know, but extensions, I'm like, what is that called? Extensions put on might be like, whoa, that's a big change, and I'm going to be looking at you every day. Or someone who loses a lot of weight or has plastic surgery to really alter the shape of their bodies. These are all things that I think when you're in a long-term relationship, that you should treat them with the same courtesy that you would if you were going to go on a trip or go on a trip without them or have some plans. You want to at least kind of bring it by them, right?
Okay.
Run it by them. This prank was great though, because his reaction is like, wait, what? And of course these are running all over the internet and it's so much fun. But for a lot of people that could be as simple as maybe wearing red lipstick instead of their usual neutral. And some people have really strong opinions about that.
And so what do you do with the feelings of, this is my body, I get to choose what I put on it or do with it? Yeah. Do I have to run every little decision by my partner?
Well, a lot of these things should come up in the dating phase of your relationship because I think for a lot of women, we're socialized that we're going to need to zhuzh up our men and that they're going to go from frat boy to GQ. And we don't see that as problematic. But for some of these men, they might be like, why are you trying to alter my appearance? Yeah. Whereas with women, I feel like if a man says, hey, I need you to tone it down a bit, or every time we go out, everyone is staring at you, and I think it's because you're showing off your cleavage too much, we might be like, well, that's their problem, not ours. So a lot of it is a bit of a double standard that we need to address. And I think it's also just being conscious of that any of this is even happening, and we might not be aware of it. If you're out and about and your partner feels uncomfortable because of the type of attention that you're getting, that may be on them. They may not like anybody looking at you, and of course that might be a control issue or a jealousy issue that's underlying all that. Or it might be that you're dressed inappropriately for the setting. And again, this is a tough topic because for a lot of people, they might be like, well, who's going to tell me that? And who should say that?
Yeah.
So you bring up a good topic.
So let's flip it. Let's say, the partner wants to make that point. Like, I don't really like what you have going on. Or, I may want you to make a permanent change to yourself in some kind of way, lose weight or you're changing it up another way. How would they go about making that known?
I think it's so important to bring up the why behind it. If it's just because you're bored of looking at the same person, then maybe you shouldn't have gotten married to begin with, right? I mean, I think it's important to have novelty and newness, but life has so many ways of doing it, through hobbies, through accessories, through moving. I mean, there's so many things that you can do with that. But as far as if you are really struggling with like, hey, I'm just not very attracted to my partner the way that they look now, which is what happens at my office at Houston Relationship Therapy. That's where we really get into that. I would say that the number one thing that you need to bring up is that all of this is for the good of the relationship, and just say, hey, I'm doing some things to improve, which you need to be doing, is you got to be working on yourself too. You can't just say you need.
Right.
But work on yourself to make improvements. And of course, the number one thing that you should be working on is your health and wellness. And when you do that, you do become more attractive because your energy is better and your sexuality tends to improve as well. So if you're working on yourself, that's when you can say, hey, I would love to have you be a part of this journey with me. Is there anything that I can do to help encourage you or motivate you to work on the things that you'd like to? So make it about them and their needs, not just, well, I need you to look like this or do this.
Okay. All right. It seems like it could be fairly simple if we're talking about changing things up. Maybe.
We hope, but nothing's ever simple in relationships, right?
I'm looking to wear a bit more red. Just giving you the heads up, babe.
Yes, you should, as you should.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. V, for helping us out. We are going to keep this Relationship Wednesday going with Pastor Keon Henderson to talk about his new book, Lazy Love. Keep it here. We're back with Relationship Wednesday. He is the author of Lazy Love, also the founder of the Lighthouse Church here in Houston, Texas. Pastor Keon Henderson, thank you so much for joining us.
I love your set. This is amazing.
Oh, well, I can't take all the credit. Actually, I can take none of the credit. But this book, it's been getting great reviews. Explain for people who don't know what Lazy Love is. What is that?
Yeah, it's just basically my effort in letting people know, like, this thing called love, it requires effort. And we want something out of it sometimes that we're not putting into it. One of my favorite sayings is you can't get a withdrawal where you don't make a deposit. And so if you want to be loved aggressively and loved hard and loved efficiently, then you have to give that to the person who's the recipient of your love. You'll get it back in return in some cases.
Okay, all right, because my first thought when I saw Lazy Love was, well, that's not the kind of love I want.
Right.
But is that the kind of love I'm giving?
Right, so the subtitle is really more important than the title itself. It's revealing and recognizing the 4 threats to any successful relationship. So it's not, lazy love is not what we're after. We actually want to reveal and reverse the things that cause our love to be lazy so that we can get what we want out of our relationships.
What are some things that people, I guess it takes people a while to realize when it comes to recognizing those flaws and those hindrances?
Yeah, because I think that in order to find out how you show up in relationships, you have to go back and find out how you were loved by your parents. There's something called attachment styles. And attachment style basically says, I show up in relationships based on how I was raised. So I am actually shown how to love from infancy. And then I take those same strategies into adulthood. Here's the problem, though. If you don't mature as a person and you take childhood trauma and try to make adult decisions, then you do things in relationships that only children do. Silence, crying, pouting, instead of communicating. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we grow up in our relationships and show up as adults and not use childhood anecdotes to try to get adults to do what we want them to do.
Oh, you heard a lot of people with these statements in this book.
You know, I've been getting good reviews and bad reviews because you know what? It's always difficult to do the work.
Yes.
Everybody wants the outcome, but they don't want the input. This book wasn't designed to say that this is going to be easy. But when I look online, Chelsea, you know, all you see people talk about online right now is love.
Right.
And then they'll show some couples say, well, if it ain't like this, I don't want it. You know, but those are, you can't choose or you can't grade somebody's relationships off of the highlight reels. Right? What we show online is not what's happening in the bedroom. It's not what's happening in the kitchen. It's not what's happening in the car and traffic. We got to get real, get to the substratum of the issue, and all the world needs is a little bit more love.
Okay, so it seems like people have a lot of expectations, but not really the strategies to get the love that they need.
Yeah, the key word is strategy, right? And expectation. So I could, in an interpersonal relationship with my wife, I could suggest that she loved me a certain way. But as the book, The 5 Love Languages said, which is, the backdrop of some of the things that I used, you can't love a person based on how you receive love. Right? So if I'm a person who needs words of affirmation, I can affirm you to make you feel loved. I have to figure out how you receive love, and then I have to love you in the way you receive it. Then when you feel loved, in return, you learn how I receive it. And so, I talk about in the book, this idea of 50-50 is what really gets us in trouble.
Oh, really? Because
Yeah.
a lot of us think like, hey, a relationship is supposed to be 50-50. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be this, give and take and all that. But
Well,
that's not the case.
I disagree. I'm not saying that I'm right, but I'm
Okay.
saying that I'm right, right?
It's working for me. Okay.
Right? I'm not saying that I'm 100% right, but here are my thoughts based on my own experience. And I've counseled over thousands of couples in 30 years of ministry. If I show up 50-50 and you've had a bad day at work today and you don't have 50%, it means I met you in the middle and you came as far as you could come. Say that's 30%. We still didn't meet that day. I don't believe you meet in the middle. I believe you meet a person where they are.
Okay.
And if I know you well enough and my love isn't lazy, then I'll know either subconsciously or through communication, where are you today? And you'll know where I am. So today you have 60. I only have 40. You've got to come 60% of the way. Sometimes it's been so rough, I have nothing. You've got to come all of the way.
Ooh.
The next time you have nothing, I'll come all of the way. Love is reciprocity, not expectation.
So you're saying like it's okay to have that conversation too. Like, hey babe, like I am 20% today, or ask.
No, you have to.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do with my wife, and we do this religiously, every Wednesday we attempt to have what we call 10-minute conversations. And that 10-minute conversation is to be had without any encumbrance, which means she gets an entirely uninterrupted 10 minutes.
Okay, no phone calls, no messages.
No
nothing.
phone calls, no messages, no interruptions.
Nice.
And I know about minute 6, I'm like, ooh, I can't wait till she stops because I got some stuff to come back. And I know she's doing the same thing.
All right.
But what we've also agreed upon is that we have to ask the person's permission to respond to their complaint.
Okay.
The substratum of the idea isn't that what we're doing works for everybody, but you have to talk about what you need to talk about. There has to be a conversation about the conversation. Can you not take someone yelling at you where you're having a conversation because you were yelled at as a child? Do you need for a person to keep their hands down because you've been abused? If you don't have those conversations, then you'll have reactions to conversations that you didn't have, which is called an argument.
Oof, and that takes a lot of internal work as well, recognizing all that. So I'm sure you've had people in your reviews say, hey, I'm not a lazy lover. I'm doing the work, but my partner is not showing up the way that I want them to. Is that also covered?
Yeah, it's covered. And so we talk about the 4 things that those 4 threats. So the lack of communication, the lack of forgiveness, confusing sex with intimacy, which is where I get all of the comments from. They like, forget that forgiveness, respect stuff. Let's talk about sex and intimacy. And I talk about in the book, the word intimacy is really intimacy, right? See into me. And that's really where a lot of the conversations have been happening, because where you see lazy love show itself the most is in sex and intimacy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's just a part of it.
That's just a part of it.
Yeah.
Again, the attachment styles is definitely the substratum of the idea. How you show up in relationships, how you were loved as a child. Relationships are a tough job.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what we cover in the book as well is relationships with other people come second to the relationship with yourself. If you're not good with you, you can't be good with anybody else.
Facts. I 100% agree with that
You agree with
statement.
that?
Yes,
I appreciate
absolutely.
it.
Thank you for that. How did you learn to love? Not lazily.
Oh my God, I'm still learning. Here's the problem with being an author or a leader. The expectation that you have perfected everything you know is unrealistic. I'm still learning. I have a daughter that's 12. I'm learning to love that little girl differently than when she was 5. I am still dealing with things that have plagued me from the past, right? And so as I show up every day, I'm learning. It's a process. But I will tell you this, I'm a spiritual person, and I believe that, and I cover this in the book, a lot of people may not be, I don't want to use the word spiritual. I won't use the word religious. Spiritual. I believe that God is love. And I believe that you got to get back to the origin of where love actually started, and it started with God if you're a believer, or with your Creator if you're not. And there are 4 Greek words for the word love. There's agape, there's storge, there's phileo, there's eros. And so it's not just one kind of love. Agape is the unconditional love, right? Eros, the erotic love, erotic. There is phileo, which is the Greek word for brotherly love, which is why we have the city Philadelphia, phileo. So we've got all of these different kinds of love, and you have to show up in different ways.
Is it reasonable to hope for someone to love another person in all those 4 ways, fully and completely?
Yeah, it is. It is, because remember, we were created to love. God is love. We were made in his image. We were made after his likeness. So if God is love and we were created to be like him, then it's in us. And I believe one of the essential ingredients for life, love, and happiness is love. I think you can do without some other things if you have love on the plate.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to supplement our love lives with this Lazy Love book, you guys. You can check it out. Keon Henderson, thank you so much for coming.
It has been an honor to be here.
Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll be back after this. Thank you for joining me for another Chattin' with Chelsea. This Relationship Wednesday was so great. As Pastor Keon noted, real love, it takes effort, it takes some work, and it takes communication. And you especially want to communicate if you want to make any changes to yourself, all right? We'll see you on the next episode of Chattin' with Chelsea. In the meantime, keep up with us on Chelsea Show Fox on all our social media pages. Till next time.